We did a couple of surveys, research, just to find out what do high school pupils know about nuclear.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, mostly it'll be nuclear bomb and nothing else.
Yeah.
So there's a lack of knowledge there.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So currently that's what I'm trying to solve, just to bridge that knowledge gap.
Yeah.
Because we actually do have an industry in South Africa.
Yeah.
You know about Nexa.
Yes.
If you are from the old generation, I think you might know it as Pelendaba.
Today I'm with Katlego Sebopela. Welcome, sir. How are you?
Yes, sir, Mr. Rita. Thank you so much for having me here. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm well, thanks.
I've been looking forward to this discussion. When I was just in our earlier chat going through your resume, there were a few things that I picked up and I said, okay. Nuclear physicists, right? Are we safe?
Yeah, with me, you're definitely safe.
With you?
Yeah, with me, definitely safe, yeah.
Now I hear you. What is that all about, man?
Nuclear physics, nuclear engineering, nuclear medicine, all of that. So basically the world of nuclear physics, it's a very distinct world because it all starts with the basic building blocks of everything that exists, which is everything's made out of atoms, basically,
Yeah.
So everything that's connected to nuclear physics is the study of the atoms, the nucleus of the atom. What can we get from there? So in most cases, the most popular that people know, normally we speak of nuclear bombs,
Yes.
But then nuclear bombs is actually a form of energy in a way, So we found a way to harness that same thing they use for nuclear bombs to actually produce nuclear power.
Yeah.
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 And nuclear medicine as well, similar. You get radiation from the nucleus from an atom,
Yeah.
So radiation, normally people say it's bad, but then it can also be used for good, So radiation, it's a carcinogen, for example, something that causes cancer, but then it's something that can actually also be used to treat cancer as well,
Yeah.
So that's the world of nuclear physics, I suppose, for the average Joe.
Yeah.
In energy and in medicine as well.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay. So let's go back a bit. Now, before you enrolled for these studies, let's say you're in high school now, what was fascinating you to follow this route?
Really honestly, I only got into this field, it was only by fate, hey. I don't think I had any choice in actually getting into this field, honestly.
Yeah.
So exactly after high school, I didn't know what I wanted to study.
Okay.
But then I knew exactly what is it that I was good at school. So it was the physics and the mathematics, obviously.
Okay.
That's what fascinated me then. And that's where I excelled.
Yeah.
Everything else, I was just average. So I didn't know what I wanted to study. But then, like I said, I knew that I was good at physics.
Yeah.
So when I had to choose a career, exactly after high school, I was like, okay, I don't know what I want to study, but then the pressures at home were, to be a medical doctor. That was from my grandma.
Yeah.
Yeah, and those were mostly the pressures. But then I was sort of like rebellious in a way, so I just didn't want to do what,
Yeah.
What parents would suggest and whatnot. So I wanted to do what I wanted to do. So I just started to enroll for physics.
Okay.
So I found a program. The first university I went to was TUT.
Okay.
Tshwane University of Technology. So there was this new program called Industrial Physics. So my uncle actually works there. So he told me about it, that, okay, you love physics, you have good marks in physics, you have good marks in mathematics. So there's this new program that that they have at the science campus. So maybe you might find it interesting. So I was like, definitely it's physics, So that's where I basically was my first time hearing about nuclear.
Okay.
Like very, very, very first time.
Yes.
So and then I suppose this goes to show that there's in the country generally, or globally generally, there's a lack of knowledge about nuclear. But then I'll say mostly maybe on the continent, because I suppose the technological development isn't there,
Yeah.
But then South Africa is the most advanced on the continent. But then again, if you look at the history of nuclear itself, South Africa is actually one of the first pioneers, So and the nuclear industry actually started here in the 1940s, around 48, and then the first one, I think it was America around 46.
Yeah.
And Britain was in between.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're actually the pioneers of nuclear sciences, nuclear engineering.
And that is quite interesting. Sorry to come in there, because it's not knowledge that's commonly known, right? Or even shared. And I presume in your instance, even discovered it by accident, in terms of, this rich history.
Exactly.
Of our capabilities. It's an irony as well, because in living through the times of load shedding, and we're trying to find nuclear energy, right? So when you take that timeline of the 40s to today, it's an irony in itself. But before we get into that, so you are at Tshwane University of Technology.
Yes, sir.
Industrial physics. And then you complete that, right?
I complete that, yeah.
And where do you move on from there?
Okay. So, industrial physics, my major was nuclear technology there. So there are two majors. There was the nuclear technology, and then there was the photonics. And going back to the thing I said about actually getting to nuclear was fate. So in our second year, we actually had to choose if we want to specialize in nuclear technology or in photonics.
Okay.
And, but then I don't think I had much of a choice, because actually our HOD actually took the top performing students and put them in nuclear, and then the rest were actually placed in photonics. So that's why I'm saying it was by fate.
Yes. Yes.
But then, okay, I suppose people had a choice of some sort, but then I was like, I'm just gonna stick to nuclear. And again, it was a time of when the country was actually planning on having some nuclear developments in terms of nuclear power.
Yeah.
If you could remember the deals that they spoke of, they were in the news.
Yes.
Yeah, controversial stuff. But then, yeah. So yeah, I just stuck to nuclear. And then from there, after finishing the program, the thing about the program was that, because we were the pioneers of the program, remember I said it was a new program?
Yes.
At the time. So what happened was that there wasn't a continuation into honors or postgraduate studies at the time for the program, But then the university had a relationship with other university, Northwest University.
Okay.
And then they actually had a postgraduate diploma in nuclear science and technology.
Okay.
So I just decided to go further my studies there. And then that's exactly where I discovered nuclear engineering.
Okay.
Specifically nuclear engineering. So my undergrad course was more broadly nuclear physics. But then nuclear engineering, I discovered it at Northwest University.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And that's where you attend your Masters of Science there.
I did my postgraduate diploma there, which is honors.
Yeah.
Specializing in nuclear engineering. And then I decided to do a master's in nuclear engineering,
Okay.
So Porsche, I spent about 3 years there.
Yeah. So far we've done nuclear physics, engineering, and then your journey takes you out of the country. To go do nuclear medicine.
Basically nuclear medicine, yeah.
In Russia.
In Russia, yeah.
Explain that.
How I got there. Interesting enough, remember when I told you the pressures from home to be a medical doctor?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I could have been one of the guys to get into like the theoretical nuclear physics.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then I thought that I don't want to do that because of whatever it is that I'm going to be doing. I need to be able to explain it to my grandma, for example.
Yeah.
You understand? And whatever it is that I'm going to be doing, it also needs to be useful in society,
Yes.
People should see the effects of whatever it is that I'm doing, So engineering, cool. And then just to please my grandma, try to please her in a way, I was like, okay, maybe I could get into something that's related to the medical field itself, Yeah. But I've always wanted to do nuclear medicine in a way. but it was just difficult to actually get into these programs in the country, you know. So yeah, Russia came about. I applied for the scholarship. Initially, actually, I was supposed to do a PhD in Russia,
Okay.
just to continue with the nuclear power, you know. But then I found that I had a bit of flexibility in terms of choosing which programs I want to do. So that's when I was like, okay, maybe let me do another master's and try out nuclear medicine.
Okay.
And yeah, that's exactly what I did. I got into it. I excelled in it. Like, I did very well. But then, honestly, I'm still a nuclear engineer at heart.
Yes.
You know, so I don't think I will be doing anything clinically. Yeah.
But I suppose that combination, because I mean, nuclear medicine, engineering, nuclear physics, that as a combination, that just opens the world, right? And gives you different methodologies to problem solve.
Yeah,
so it's
I
not all
suppose.
lost, I suppose, from that angle.
And then again, they are all interconnected, you know, in a way. Like, for example, so let me start with nuclear engineering, right? For example, you do nuclear reactor science or nuclear reactor technology or engineering, for example, you know. So if you look at where nuclear medicine comes from, nuclear medicine, what we call radioisotopes or radiopharmaceuticals, they actually come from a nuclear reactor. You know, that is designed, operated, maintained by a nuclear engineer, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, part of the program that I did in Russia, what I liked about it was that it was more wholesome, you know. It wasn't exactly just focusing on the clinical stuff, but at least there was that engineering stuff as well, you know.
Yeah.
For me. So that's, I suppose, looking at the entire program, that was my, I mean, as a nuclear engineer at heart, the nuclear reactor part and the production of radiopharmaceuticals in a nuclear reactor, that was mostly my, I suppose, my interest.
Yeah. Yeah. And the Russian experience, was that language barrier or English was fairly commonly used?
No, there was a big language barrier in the beginning. But then for people who do not know, before you can actually study in Russia, you go through a year of studying Russian language, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. So before I could actually get into the program, I actually did, a year of Russian language. And
so you did your master's in Russian?
I did my second master's in nuclear medicine in Russia, yeah. And so in between the masters in engineering, there was the Russian language. So the Russian language, you basically do the language itself, but then you'll do other subjects that are related to what you're gonna study after.
Yes.
In Russian, you know, so you'll do your physics, your mathematics. I think I did a bit of IT, and then there was something also called scientific speech.
Yeah.
So basically, that's where you learn all the terms of what you're gonna study, in the Russian language.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. And then from there I got into the program after a year of doing Russian language.
Yeah. So it's a year of preparation.
Preparatory faculty,
and then you get there, and how many years did you spend there?
So Russia, I spent like 3 years.
3 years?
Yeah.
Okay.
3 years, the language, and then 2 years for the masters, yeah.
Yes. What did you learn about yourself during that time?
In Russia?
Yeah.
Because it was actually not the first time. The first time I lived away from home was in Porch when I did my master's. I remember that was also very difficult. But then now imagine going to a completely new country, and then people don't necessarily speak the language that you speak, you know. So I suppose most of us travel abroad expecting that everyone speaks English, you know, but that wasn't the case, you know. So it was a thing of, I found that I am very much, I can adapt. You know, I never knew that about myself,
Yeah.
You know, I thought I was mostly rigid and, you know, but then I found that I could actually, you know, adapt to a new environment, you know, get accustomed to, I don't know, I suppose the way other people live, you know, actually find interest in that as well, you know, other people, their culture, you know, all of those things. So yeah, in most cases, I would say that I found that sort of malleable. I can adapt, and you can put me anywhere in the world, I suppose, and I'll find a way to sort of like fit in.
Yeah.
So yeah, but then the preparatory language courses actually helped,
Okay.
So trying to bridge, in most cases with people, I think the language is the first barrier of entry, if I can put it that way.
Yeah.
Before anything else, yeah. So actually finding my feet with trying to put, a few words together to make a Russian sentence, I think that also helped as well, So yeah.
Would you advise others to follow this route of international study?
Yeah, definitely, there's a thing they like saying that South Africans don't like traveling.
Yeah.
And I noticed that's mostly the case. Normally, South Africans are the, I suppose, type of people that misunderstand other people in most cases because they've never actually left the country and just see how other people live, So with traveling abroad, that it teaches you a lot about other people, other cultures, other way of living,
Yeah.
And then, it's being in Russia basically changed my whole perspective on life, on everything, whether it's politics, like everything.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. I mean, this is a globally connected world, right? So we can't live in isolation, so to speak. And our way of life and the rest of the world and how we integrate, interact, all of that becomes quite important.
Exactly,
And you're quite right. I mean, Russia is not the easiest of locations, be it from a weather perspective. I would imagine wherever you were at, it must have been cold, I presume. How cold did you get?
Yeah, in Tomsk, which is like deep in Russia and Siberia.
Yeah,
the temperature can go to minus 40 in winter.
Minus 40 in winter.
Minus 40 in winter, yeah.
And you still had to speak Russian.
You still have to speak Russian in minus 40, yeah.
Yeah, and study.
Exactly.
Okay. Is that when you were introduced to vodka?
Funny enough, people might not believe this, but I've never tried vodka when in Russia.
You've never tried vodka in Russia?
Nah, not tried vodka.
But you've tried it at home?
I've tried it here at home.
Okay.
that brand that has Russian in it as well.
Yeah.
That's the one I tried.
Yeah.
Here at home.
It's maybe it's not a bad thing because I think ours is a bit diluted.
People say so, but then I don't know. When you go to the liquor store, like I look at the volume of alcohol.
Yeah.
In some instances, and it's pretty much the same. I think. Yeah.
No, I hear you. And what I liked about part of your background and when I look at your profile is that you've been quite deliberate to say you want to solve problems. Yeah, it's something you're passionate about, solving problems. What problems are you solving currently?
What problems am I solving currently? Okay. Or what problems do I have aspiration of solving?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm trying, so currently, like I said, the thing of there's a lack of nuclear knowledge, especially in the country. Okay. Like I was in high school and I had no idea what nuclear was. So yeah, this year I did a couple of studies. So I'm part of a multinational group of other nuclear enthusiasts such as myself from across the continent there, and we call ourselves New Lwazi.
Okay.
New meaning nuclear, and Lwazi knowledge. Okay. Yeah, and basically we're all about demystifying nuclear on the African continent, right? Yeah, so we did a couple of surveys, research, just to find out what do high school pupils know about nuclear.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, mostly it'll be nuclear bomb and nothing else.
Yeah.
So there's a lack of knowledge there.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So currently, that's what I'm trying to solve, just to bridge that knowledge gap.
Yeah.
Because we actually do have an industry in South Africa.
Yeah.
You know about Nexa.
Yes.
If you are from the old generation, I think you might know it as Pelendaba. You know, yeah. People think Pelindaba is Atteridgeville, but then that name actually came from Pelindaba there. We're actually the only country on the continent that has a nuclear power plant, which is Skubeck, operated in Cape Town, giving us 6% of our power. You know, we have facilities such as Ithemba Labs, which is under the NRF, the National Research Foundation, and they also do nuclear physics research as well. You know, so those are the things that I'm trying to basically introduce to pupils, especially those that are interested in STEM. You know, from high school level, for example. Yeah. Just to bridge that knowledge gap.
I like that. I like that because I was going to say, you know, obviously you've borrowed this from your own journey, right? And lessons learned from some of the gaps that you experienced. I mean, Nulwazi is sounds powerful. You know, like-minded people that basically you're teaching about the world of nuclear and how diverse it is. And probably how safe it is, right?
Exactly.
And what it can do for us. If we explore this world of nuclear, I mean, you started there at the beginning, but perhaps help us demystify it, right? Because it's like, when you mention the word nuclear, you know, you're quite right. The visual picture is possibly something going boom.
Exactly.
Right? Whereas it's possibly quite pivotal to some of the technologies that we have today, some of the medical breakthroughs that we have today, etc., etc.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's medical applications. It's material science research as well. It's food and agriculture. Many people might not know that. And then I suppose the most obvious will be energy.
No, interesting. And with Nulwazi, your key stakeholders, is it high school or even, can I say university perhaps at undergrad level? Is that part of the scope or for now still focused very much on at high school level?
Now for now, it's pretty much from high school. And we took that strategic decision mostly because in our high school system, for example, I think from the 9th grade, students actually start picking a career path, whether they want to get into the sciences, the humanities, or anything else. So the plan is to actually start even from the 9th grade, not even just focusing on students in STEM in high school, you know, but then starting from at least the 9th grade, and then the 10th and the 11th, up to 12, for example. And then, just introduce them to nuclear sciences. But then again, part of us doing this thing is not necessarily just to teach about nuclear in a way, you know, but then there's other spin-offs from what we're doing. And if you look at the focus on the 9th grade, you actually, from that grade, you actually start encouraging them to actually start considering getting into STEM careers. Because the nuclear industry is quite broad, you know, and it employs, like everyone, you know. It's not just scientists and engineers.
Correct.
But then, of course, you have people in humanities, you know. There's law as well. Because nuclear, if you look at, it's the most regulated industry globally. Because we understand what we're working with, you know. Hence, again, it is the safest industry globally. Nothing safer than nuclear, I promise you that. And people do not believe when I say that, you know. But then, the regulations around nuclear are very, very, very stringent. You know, so we have bodies such as in the country, such as the NNR, the National Nuclear Regulator. And then internationally, we have bodies such as the IAEA, that's the International Atomic Energy Agency, you know. So basically the mandate for regulations and all of that comes from them, you know. So even before we can actually start erecting a nuclear installation in the country, you know, there's a vigorous process that you have to go through. Hence, in most cases, people would say that nuclear is expensive and it takes a long time. Because the regulatory part of it, the licensing part of whatever you're going to erect, does take a long time, you know, and then that's basically bringing in that safety aspect, you know. Exactly. So again, and if you look at us as nuclear engineers and scientists, in most cases, our job is to actually make sure that whatever we're operating, this thing is safe to protect the public and the environment in most cases. So
No, it makes perfect sense, to be honest, in as much as its safety is derived from all the steps and checks and balances, right? So that makes perfect sense. And what has been the reaction of the students in terms of the work
The students
Nulwazi is
have been
doing?
okay. Yeah. So with Nilas itself, we actually haven't started going on the ground because and reasons for that, we're working with basically different countries from across the continent, you know.
Okay.
So we're still trying to find the perfect model.
Okay.
You know, because normally, you know, people just go and, you know, like you just preach normally, and then, you know, for a day, and then the students the next day to forget what you were speaking about, you know. So we're trying to have a very solid communication model, you know, to make sure that students actually grasp this thing, you know.
Yes.
Just having things like a number of activities that they can do, giving them a project, you know, or Olympiad, that sort of stuff, But then what I've done outside of Nulwazi, there's a sort of like a youth organization of nuclear professionals in the country. It's called SANEPS, the South African Young Nuclear Professional Society.
Okay.
Yeah. So I've sort of been part of their delegate, though I'm not a professional as yet. So normally if there's something that they need done somewhere because they are busy with their jobs, you know, they normally call me up to, you know, to go and help them out. And normally it will be interactions with young people. So this year we're actually at the opening of the National Science Week.
Okay.
I think it was around July.
Yeah.
In Venda. So interacted with pupils from the schools around Venda, you know. And then they, in most cases, they're always fascinated, you know.
Yeah.
And then they was like, I just thought this thing was about, you know, killing people, bombs, or whatever. But then when you tell them about the nuclear energy aspect of it, when you tell them about the medical aspect of it, again in food and agriculture, which is people do not know that, you know, about applications of nuclear in food and agriculture. So they start warming up, you know. You meet a lot of young people who are like, okay, I wanna get into agriculture, for example, you know. And then you're like, yeah, you can get into agriculture. And then again, if you want to get into agriculture, okay, here's something else that, you know, you can get into agriculture and then actually include nuclear in it. They were like, you know, this is very interesting, you know. So those sort of reactions, you know, that you get from peoples. And then again, with the energy part as well, you know, telling them, okay, you don't necessarily have to study nuclear engineering to be a nuclear engineer, you know. Things such as like mechanical engineering, chemical engineering, all the other engineering fields and physics can actually get you into the nuclear field, you know. So if you have interest in something else, maybe in, for example, like I said, in mechanical engineering, you can always, if you get bored there, for example, you can always switch and say, okay, let me maybe try something in nuclear, you know. So such things. So I would say the reaction from students, from pupils, I like the reception as well, you know. It's very positive, you know. So
Okay. No. Great work that you're doing. Looking forward to hearing more about it. It sounds quite powerful, and I'm sure it will add great value and change a few people's lives moving forward. I presume from what you've shared with us that you're an advocate of nuclear power. You know, we currently, as you would know, powered mostly, you know, through coal. Have you shared your number with Eskom, by the way?
Have I?
Shared your number with Eskom?
Shared my number with Eskom?
Yeah, I'm sure they want to hear from you.
I have here and there. I've interacted with people from Eskom. So the nuclear power aspect of it. You mentioned earlier, interesting enough, the thing of load shedding.
Yeah.
Like, for example, and that's actually load shedding. And then again, the world is also looking into going to greener, cleaner technologies, for example, you know. You mentioned coal, you know, but then we know that coal it's not very environmentally friendly in terms of emissions and everything, right? But then now, if we're gonna go green, and we're gonna have to replace coal, for example, you know. But then the thing about coal, it's energy, it's baseload energy. And baseload energy is basically the backbone of any country economically, So in terms of energy sources, the only clean baseload source that can replace coal would be nuclear and not the renewables, for example, So yeah, that's something that I suppose many people wouldn't know. We try and emphasize this thing that nuclear is green. For some reason, some people wouldn't believe that, but then nuclear is zero emissions, actually the cleanest.
Yeah.
Even cleaner than solar and wind,
Yeah.
for example. That's something that people wouldn't necessarily know as well.
So it has your support as the way to go. We should be accelerating our efforts in that regard.
Mr. Reed, definitely. I can even give you some stats, to show that nuclear is the way to go, for example. So amongst the ESCOM fleet of power plants, for example, right, mostly it's coal, right? And then we only have one nuclear, which is in Kuwait, producing 6% of our power, right?
Yeah.
You look at the best operating plant amongst the ESCOM fleet, Kuwait is actually the best operating plant amongst the ESCOM fleet, right? Remember again, I said nuclear is very much regulated. So political interference into such a system are very rare. It's almost impossible because of all the strong regulations around, you understand? Kuwait now, for example, it's giving us the cleanest, safest, reliable energy and the cheapest. People wouldn't believe that as well. So nuclear energy, Kuwait, the plant, it cost about less than 15 cents a kilowatt hour, for example. And you find that the coal costs about, is it 50 cents? Approximately per kilowatt hour. And renewables, mostly solar, it's around 2 rand. That should tell you already, And then again, nuclear, like I said, it's base load, meaning it's energy pump storage. You're always going to have that energy at any given time of the day.
Yeah.
You understand? And then if you're going to go for renewables are intermittent. Night times comes, you don't have the energy.
Yeah.
There's no wind, you don't have the energy, if that makes sense. So you cannot have base load using renewables, for example,
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And as part of the scope of, for lack of a better term, your NGO work that you're doing, which is quite broad, would this part of advocacy or lobbying to the powers that be that we need to be accelerating our pathway towards nuclear power, right? For all these advantages. Is that falling on deaf ears, or are there plans in motion from your perspective? What are you observing out there? Or are we still debating?
Yeah. No, I like that question. The energy sphere or the energy field, there's a lot of politics, eh? And it's not just locally, but then it's like globally. So if you look at, for instance, the reason why the nuclear field has been around for 60 years or more, but then it still isn't as big as the other industries, you know what I mean? You find that there was a political sort of agenda there for some reason, political, economical agenda, for example, right? Because imagine if you had nuclear power plants, right, for example. The biggest consumers of coal is actually coal power plants, right?
Yeah.
So now if you start putting nuclear, so what's going to happen to the coal business?
Yeah.
If that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So many people wouldn't be happy with that.
Yeah.
You get what I mean?
Okay.
So, hence, back in the day, I think it was around the 60s, 70s. There's actually a documentary about this, by the way. The influences of back then, I think it was the rock and roll guys, the hippies, the Beatles, all of those guys.
Yeah.
So they were actually, I'd say used maybe, to paint nuclear in a bad light, right?
Yeah.
Hence, we still associate nuclear with bombs in most cases, right? So that was deliberately,
Yeah.
Locally in the country as well, if you look at countries actually being able to produce their own energy independently and at very cheap rates as well, especially on the continent, that's pretty much very contested, because of, again, with the moving in of renewables, wind and solar. In some cases, these spaces give people an opportunity to actually, I suppose, be entrepreneurs, be the people who will bring this technology to people, you understand? But then you look at the other fields, like for nuclear or coal, and these are mega projects. Yeah. These are governmental projects, for example, if that makes sense, right? So, but then I think it's a responsibility of the government to make sure that the country has stable baseload energy from the get-go, before you can bring other people, independent people, for example. We call them IPPs now, right? Independent power producers, that sort of thing. Yeah, so from the IPPs, obviously, they will contest nuclear because they want the business, if that makes sense, especially renewable IPPs and solar IPPs, for example. Yeah. Okay. I'm hoping that answers your question, Mr. Reed.
It does. Competing interests are preventing us from ending load shedding.
Yeah. Can I just mention something quickly? Yeah. So currently, what's happening this week? This week and next week, there's something called COP28.
Yeah, in Dubai. Yeah.
In Dubai, happening in Dubai. Yeah. It's a Congress. It's a Committee of the People. Committee of the People, right? Not Congress, right?
We'll leave it there. Yeah. We'll leave it there.
Okay.
Let's solve another issue that we're passionate about, certainly in this program, unemployment, and in particular the youth, right? Which is something up your alley because you're quite passionate with those that are coming into the mainstream, trying to figure out which career paths to follow and so forth. It's a pandemic, if we were to be upfront about it. Some of your ideas we could share generously in terms of how do we alleviate, avoid, input, whatever, into this unemployment conundrum that we find ourselves in.
Interesting, Mr. Reed. I'm always gonna go back to using nuclear as an example. You look at a nuclear power plant, for example, as a mega project. How many people the industry or a nuclear power plant basically employs, right? You look at, let's take Uber, for example. I think it employs more than 600 professionals in the field. So having such projects in the country that not only benefit us obviously from an energy security point of view, but then again you look at from an industry point of view and actually creating employment, right? Something such as nuclear, for example, like I said, it's baseload energy, right? So if you're gonna industrialize, you wanna create jobs locally, have factories, you need that clean or you need that baseload energy, right? So having a secure energy investment such as nuclear, it'll give space for people to open up all these other industries, and also attract foreign investment as well, because of your country is very energy secure, so you can build industries around that to employ more people, for example, right? Yeah. So I think in terms of employment, I think that will be mostly my take. Yeah, building industries or making sure that the countries has energy security to be able to attract investment industries, to create employment for people.
Yeah. No, thank you for that. We're going to collate all of these valuable inputs, and we're taking on a challenge to try and make sense out of it. And I'm sure we'll collaborate and co-create with the likes of yourselves moving forward in terms of how do we bring this to life and actually enrich other people's lives in that way. So let's see what you were up to while you were in Russia and so forth. Okay. What did you sneak in your suitcase? Favorite SA food you took with?
To Russia.
Yeah.
Nah, I think I just took my luggage. That's all. Um,
No knickknacks, no
Actually,
pub.
no. Actually, yeah. When I came back for holidays, but then
Yeah.
going back, I had to take some Rooibos.
Some Rooibos.
I love tea. Yeah, I did take in some Rooibos tea back to Russia. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And your music, black coffee or DJs in there?
Black coffee, DJs in there. Okay. So I just have to pick between
If you had
the
the
two.
choice between the two.
Okay, I would black coffee.
What
'Cause
music do you listen to?
he's the
What type
legend.
of genre of music?
I listen to an amalgamation of music, but then I grew up liking words, so I'd say rap.
Rap.
That's my favorite.
And your
music,
favorite
yeah.
rapper?
My favorite rapper is a guy called Lupe Fiasco.
Ah.
Yeah.
And Amapiano doesn't do it for you?
Interesting enough, before I left the country,
Yeah.
nah, like not at all. But then I went out sometime in Russia and I actually heard them playing my piano somewhere and I saw how
Yeah.
people were reacting to that. So, I found it
In
fascinating.
Russia?
In Russia.
So DJ Stock is in Russia?
Basically. So my piano is really doing things out there. People do not know that. But then, yeah, it's really out there in the world.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And your side hustle, what is that?
Side hustle. I don't have a side hustle per se. Nah, I don't have a side hustle.
I think you've shared plenty so far.
Okay.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, Katlego Sebopela, you saw him first here at Discover Talent at Vico.net. Thank you for joining us. It was a pleasure meeting with you.
Thank you, Mr. Reed and the team. I'm honored to be here again. So yeah, thank you guys very much.